Okay, yep, you're live.
Hey, thank you. Good evening, members of council, staff, and members of the public and media. Today, we're calling a special emergency council meeting held today on July 27th at 3 p.m., utilizing the electronic participation by members pursuant to section of Bill 197, the COVID Economic Recovery Act 2020, section 3.4. As you're well aware, these proceedings are live streamed and video recorded and shall form part of the record according to the Town of Cobourg Retention Policy bylaw. If you require more detailed information, it can certainly be ascertained from our clerk, Mr. Larmer. Are there any other pecuniary interested members of council? Seeing none, I'd like to proceed to Deputy Mayor under General Government Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's one item under General Government Services, a memo from the Municipal Clerk, Manager of Legislative Services regarding an amendment to the Town of Cobourg Procedural Bylaw regarding electronic participation in council meetings as a result of Bill 195 and Bill 197 receiving royal assent on July 21st, 2020. The action recommended that council receive the report from the Municipal Clerk, Manager of Legislative Services for information purposes, and further that council authorize the preparation of a bylaw to be endorsed and presented to council at a regular council meeting to allow for the electronic participation of council meetings to continue. And further that council direct the municipal clerk to review the procedural bylaw and bring back the necessary changes and recommendations to council in order to reflect the continued use of electronic participation at future council meetings and a review of the additional changes to the Municipal Act, including the use of proxy voting at council meetings.
Thank you. At this point, Mr. Larmer, would you like to address or speak to any items before I call for a seconder?
I would just call for a seconder, put it on the floor. Then I can...
All right, thank you. I see from Councillor Darling. All in favor?
I can talk about it now.
Speak? Sorry, I didn't catch that. You want to speak to it?
Yeah, I can talk about it before.
Okay, sorry, I have to turn up my volume. I apologize.
That's okay. So I just want to say thanks to council. I appreciate the special meeting is called by the mayor for the emergency. So as you know, over the course of this emergency, there's been lots of different legislation, regulations, different things that have come out by the province, and it can be difficult to try to navigate them and stay up to date with them as they come and change. So on July 8th, the government put forward two bills, Bill 195 and Bill 197. One was regarding the handling of emergency orders and declaration of emergency, which was Bill 195. The road to reopening the province, to getting back on track during the pandemic, but keeping some emergency orders in place. The second piece, which was done, so that 195 was done by the Solicitor General. The second one is done by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing through regarding changes to the Municipal Act regarding in the event that emergency declaration is deleted or revoked. So both of these legislations came into effect on July 21st. On Bill 197, the very bottom of it, under Section 17, said once this piece of legislation receives royal assent, that the declaration of emergency would be terminated. This piece of legislation took effect on July 21st, 2020. What that piece of legislation also did it revoked the declaration of emergency, but also what it did is revoked the previous amendment to the Municipal Act, that was the Emergency Act under Bill 185, which we passed under Section O of Bylaw 021-2020, which was the bylaw to amend the procedural bylaw to allow us to meet electronically during a provincial or local state of emergency. Thus, we had a meeting scheduled for today at 4 o'clock, regular council meeting, and we wouldn't be able to meet because we didn't have the bylaw passed under the new regulations, which was Bill 197. which now allows us, or council, sorry, to make the determination that they can now, until further notice, or there was nothing in there that eliminates it after the fact, but now council can participate by electronic means on a permanent basis. As what the procedural bylaw amendment is today is just a very brief section to permit us to continue to meet electronically. And what I've included in the recommendation is for me to bring back a more detailed report on how we can change a lot of the different sections of procedural bylaw that now equate to participating electronically. So delegations, presentations, we amend the statutory planning means. We would look at all those things, as well as incorporate advisory committees and local boards and those things in the procedural bylaw as well. Obviously, in order to continue on business of council with physical distancing and those things, that it was important that we, especially with the meeting at 4, with some of the agenda items, that we confirm this to make sure that we are following the rules and we are adhering to municipal legislation. So that's what this is right now. It's kind of a placeholder, allow us to meet again today at 4. But ultimately be council's decision if you want to continue electronically, or you wanted to go back to physical meeting in council chambers or alternative space that we can, adhere to physical distancing. The other part is that I've seen some municipalities grapple with this, and some of them came out just after the legislation on July 23rd. I mean, what they are including in some of the procedural bylaws, which we could consider, is still allowing individuals to, or members of council, some to participate electronically, some not to provide some kind of process to notify the clerk and get rid of the quorum in present council chambers and just have it, a couple members say they're participating electronically, other members want to come in. So those are kind of those things to allow for a hybrid model of that process. So that's an option for council as well. So really today, I apologize it's late, but I literally was looking through the legislation on the weekend, just to make sure I'm up to date as I do to try to figure it all out. And unfortunately, it came to the fact that we have to get this going. And hopefully you had time to review the report. I also attached letters from the ministry, as well as some 3-page topics on the electronic participation. But also you'll see under the amendments to the Municipal Act, under the anonymous bill, which amended many pieces of legislation. They also included what was called proxy voting. So the government has now indicated that the council can decide if they want to include proxy voting in council, allow members to put out proxies on certain votes, but the legislation says it's up to the rules set by the clerk, but ultimately passed by council. So obviously those aren't getting presented today, but I've kind of given that background for you. And hopefully this motion will allow us, or me, to report back to council on some of those things, do a little bit more research, and bring forward some more amendments later this in August, at our August meeting, or essentially in September, but depending on what council direction they want to go. Just also a point of order is that currently right now, members of council, as you're aware, we're in Victoria Hall meeting, and some at home because there is power outage across the town. And I think this is the first time we've had this issue, because we can't have members of the public come and sit in our meetings. So right now there might be a section of the municipality that can tune in the public to actually listen or hear that or watch that live. So I just wanted to make council aware of that we are live streaming. It is on YouTube, which will be posted after it's live. And when the power goes on, people will be able to see it. But through the Zoom application, individuals can use their phone, they can dial in, those things as well, and contact me. But council, obviously right now some people are in the dark right now in this council meeting. It has been published. But this meeting in particular was emergency with no notice in the procedural bylaw. So I just want council to be aware of that. And, if council deems that this is important, and in our 4 o'clock meeting to members of the public, maybe there might be a motion to adjourn this meeting until another day, as well as the 4 o'clock, or consider those options. But just to let council know that the opening meeting rules, I've grappled this with during this electronic means, and what an open meeting is and how it can be, and do we have to have people be live attending and tune in. But we have been told that that open meeting means to open the public, it's made available to the public openly, and allowed ability to participate electronically. So members of the public can contact me. They can participate if they want. It's live. They can tune on. So it's made available. It's there. We're not prohibiting people not to be able to participate. So I just want council to be aware. So, you do have the ability if you wanted to adjourn this, if you want to postpone the meeting to another time today or those things. I just wanted you to be aware of. Sorry, Your Worship, I just thought I'd tap that on to my explanation of what's on today's agenda.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Larmer, for those details. Are there any clarification questions from members of council? Councillor Darling?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to confirm that there was no time frame on this, and you said will there be a time frame in your report, or will we keep this going forever? Is there any context on that in any way at this time?
Mr. Larman?
So no, we haven't had any indication like we did before when council passed that amendment in March. This one is what we've been told as clerks and CAOs, that this is a permanent change to the Municipal Act, and council has the authority to use it or not. It's there now. Back in 2018, when this first came out as part of that modernization of the Municipal Act bill that came through, when we reviewed our procedural bylaw, I don't know if it was the last term or the start of this term, that electronic participation without quorum or physical quorum had to be present was something new. And municipalities across Ontario, even clerks, were kind of like, ooh, this could get hairy. We don't know what the quorum, internet goes down. We don't know if people are in the background or those things that are going on. So nobody actually really went with that section. And then a year and a half later, a pandemic happened, and we've never been so reliant on electronic participation. And I think it opened not just us staffs, but also councils and members, even Parliament, provincial and federal are doing this. I know federal is. So it really opened the doors. Now everyone's utilizing it. So it was actually a good experience to say, no, this amendment, somebody was thinking about things like this, and it has the ability to work. So I think that's why. So I think this is a permanent change. I don't think this will leave. I think council has the ability to decide. I've seen some clerks talk about, we have a group going across Ontario, and some are saying, every third meeting will be electronic or physical, and they'll spice it up, or they'll have committee of the whole meetings electronic, and then physically they'll come in at regular council meetings when they start. Their standing committees will be electronic. So they're doing like a hybrid model approach, or their councils are thinking about that. So that's something, but also they introduced proxy voting too as another alternative for individuals to councils to look at. And that again maybe helps that you still have physical meetings, but now you have the ability to proxy vote. So if somebody is self-isolating, they're staying at home for the COVID, they can't physical distance, that people can pass their votes on to other members to cast them if they aren't able to attend, if council decides just only in-person meetings. So sorry, long-winded answer, but there's many different scenarios, but I don't think this is going away.
Thank you, Mr. Larmer.
Other questions, clarification? Councillor Chorley?
First of all, thank you to Mr. Larmer for being so quick and responsive in bringing this to council. I know the time frame has been very tight. I'm just wondering if you have a rough idea of the time frame for bringing us more information on proxy voting and other changes that might be needed in the procedural bylaw. Do you know how long that will take?
Through your worship, Mayor Count, I hope that I can start to work on something and have some information in August for proxy voting. I think what we're kind of grappling with is that no one has this yet, and we're still kind of working in the bigger cities on. We try to feed off each other, best practices, and have meetings. I think what the issue that I'm seeing that we'll have to work through and give council a good understanding is the declaration of pecuniary interest part of it. If an individual gets a proxy vote and they decide they have a declaration mid-meeting and you have their vote and how that happens. So there's those kinds of things that go on. But I hope August, I definitely will have an update procedural bylaw with electronic voting there, or some scenarios based on kind of council's direction in our general government meetings, the deputy mayor. But I hope to have something in August. I know our clerks group in Northumberland County, we meet on Wednesday, and we're talking about this as well, the upper tier and the lower tiers. So I'm really hopeful that the end of August at our meeting, and it gives me a little bit of time from now until then as this break happens to work on it.
Okay. Other questions of clarification, members of council? Seeing none, we have back to you then, Deputy Mayor, under General Government, and I can see there's no further discussion. Is there any other clarity required? I just want to be sure I'm not leaving anybody out. Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Against? Carried. And Deputy Mayor, we're back to you for the bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you. Just watching the screen scroll up a little. Bylaw 049-2020 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 009-2019 to establish the rules of order and procedures of municipal council and committee meetings for the corporation of the town of Cobourg. Action recommended that leave be granted to introduce bylaw 049-2020 and to dispense with the reading of the bylaw by the municipal clerk, and that the same be considered read and passed, and that the mayor and the municipal clerk sign the same, and the seal of the corporation be thereto affixed.
Seconder. Councilor Burkett. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Against? Carried. Mr. Larmer, I know you've spoken to, before I call for an adjournment, our session scheduled for 4 p.m. Could I have some input this time, just general input from members of council on the options? The options, as I believe they are, we can proceed at 4 o'clock, knowing we may not be reaching every citizen within the town of Cobourg. There could be limitations because of the power outage, and we proceed accordingly, or we make a motion on the floor to reconvene this meeting perhaps for another day and time at 4 p.m. Could I just get some general input from council members of how they would like to proceed? I'll go to Councillor Beattie and then Councillor Burrow.
Thank you, Your Worship, for bringing this forward. I'm mindful that the majority of the community is probably without internet. Even if they have electricity, they might not be fully charged to access broadband or Wi-Fi. So with that in mind, I think it's fair to postpone to another day at 4 p.m. just to ensure, I think it's a gesture to the community to ensure that everyone can participate through the necessary means.
Okay, thank you for your expression. Councillor Burrow.
I agree. It is important, and this is also an important meeting that people may want to comment on and watch it. So I would agree if we could postpone it.
Okay. Any other input from members of council for consideration? Seeing none, Mr. Larmer, just for clarification.
The Deputy Mayor has a question.
Oh, sorry, I apologize, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will concede to my two colleagues, but I would be more than happy to proceed at 4 o'clock, only because I checked with the clerk, and on a normal council meeting, we get maybe 6, 7, maybe up to 10 people viewing our council meetings. And there is no open forum today. So there wouldn't be anyone that would be commenting anyway. So I'm quite, happy to go ahead. But if the, majority of council wants to postpone till tomorrow, that so be it. Do we have enough time to do that tomorrow, Mr. Larmer, or would we need 48 hours in order to change that date?
Mr. Larmer, if you could answer that question before I go to Councillor Darling.
No, council will be making a resolution or pass a motion today for that change of adjournment and postpone the meeting. It's already meeting's been published, and we would put it everywhere, and I put notice out that just a date change and then the time and the reason why. Obviously, it's a kind of an emergency situation or out of the ordinary situation that people may not be able to access the local government decisions today at this time. That'll be posted online, but I don't see a reason for that. No.
Okay. Councillor Darling.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I agree with the Deputy Mayor on this. I don't know about other people's schedule, but I've got my schedule pretty well booked up. People are expecting the meeting tonight. They have the option of viewing it on YouTube after. We do not have any delegations or open forum, so I'm more than happy to continue on today. Thank you.
Okay. Well, again, from listening, we have both sides. I am going to ask how many would like to proceed at 4 p.m. today. Am I able to do that, Mr. Larmer, or do I have to have a special motion on the floor?
So nothing is on the floor right now. We adjourn this meeting, it's done. We start the meeting at 4 o'clock. If somebody wants to put something on the agenda, like right now as part of the adjournment and postpone, I think it's, we can do that and we can postpone that meeting. Just trying to think procedurally in regards to this. It might be a better idea to, because this is a special emergency meeting, to deal with this adjournment motion at the start of the meeting at 4 o'clock. That way we can start that meeting, and then before we even get into the business, we deal with that right away. And then that's inside that meeting. So a motion to adjourn is in order. And germane, because that it'd be for the full meeting, that this meeting would adjourn because of a significant power outage or some unfortunate scene event that happened in the community, and then council can vote on that. So we'd still open that meeting and then have that decision there.
Okay. So this is how we'll proceed then. And I apologize, I don't have my watch with me, but it looks like it's 3:23 on my computer screen. So we will come back at 4 and make a determination from the floor of how you would like to proceed, because obviously there's comment on both ends, and I can appreciate both. Mr. Larmer?
And this might give us an opportunity just to get an ETA from our utility company if they have an expectation, and we can provide that at the start of the meeting too. I'm not saying we can get one. It could be unfortunate. We might not know. But I'll work with the CAO to get that, and we can have that for you at the meeting, and you can make that decision.
Okay, and Mr. Larmer, thank you. My understanding, we can stay on this same feed for our next meeting as well. Is that correct?
Yep. Just mute and hide your video until come back at 4, and this will still be live. It'll just have the council meeting at 4 will start momentarily for the public to see. Okay.
And at that time, we'll make a determination from the council floor of how this council would like to proceed. In my position, I can appreciate both points. So we'll see you just prior to 4 p.m.
We need to adjourn, Your Worship.
I will. Colleen, I've got a glare here, sorry. Councillor Barreau, all in favor? Carried. Okay.